Hello and welcome back to Central University. This is Core 52, and we are in chapter 18. And the title of the chapter is Blessedness. Mark Moore is pulling from the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. And the verses that he begins the chapter with are from Matthew 5, 11, and 12, which say, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and closes with these verses that I just read, really do speak to the idea of happiness and understanding the path to happiness. And what Jesus begins with in the Sermon on the Mount is a very counterintuitive teaching about the path to happiness. The word blessed means happy or fortunate or lucky. It's a positive word. It's something that we would all long for and desire. And so Jesus begins to put these words together and say, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. And yet it's so incredibly counterintuitive when he says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. And so as you're reading through and studying and thinking about the teaching of Jesus, so often what you're going to experience is that Jesus takes worldly wisdom and he flips it on its head. And he teaches us something that is counterintuitive, that is opposite of what we would expect. And the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes are a very clear example of that wisdom from Jesus that is so different than what we normally think, hear, and even try to live out in our own lives. There's a quote towards the bottom of page 120 where Mark Moore says, "Religion hasn't been any more successful at building happiness than philosophy. Perhaps it's because religion is often as self-focused as philosophy. We clearly need a different approach." And so, as you're working through, and hopefully you took your time reading through these different statements about being blessed: poor in the spirit, mourn, meek, hunger and thirst for righteousness, merciful, pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. And Mark Moore brings out that these statements by Jesus individually by themselves wouldn't have been completely unheard of. That some of these thoughts or ideas would have been in literature in their day, philosophy of their day. And yet Jesus took them and stacked them all together and then made such a clear example to say, this is the pathway to happiness. And so what I want you to focus on and think about in the course of this chapter is just simply our own pursuit of happiness. And how does it resemble the path to happiness that Jesus is laying out? And is it different? Do we realize and do we believe Jesus when he tells us that blessed are the poor in spirit? Do we believe him when he says that the path to happiness and fulfillment in our lives is a path of humility? that it's a path of meekness, that it's a path of hungering for righteousness, that it's a path of being merciful, forgiving other people, not claiming all of our rights, if you will. You know, we think that if we're going to be happy, then we've got to protect ourselves, and we've got to claim our rights, and we got to tell people how it is, and we got to set people in their place. And Jesus says, no, blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the meek. Blessed, happy are the peacemakers. So Jesus is giving us a path. He's giving us wisdom for happiness. The question is, do we believe him? Do we believe him? Not have we read this passage before? You know, we can sit back and we can kind of give token appreciation to the teachings of Jesus and the poetic nature of it, or you know, the Sunday school feel to Jesus' words, and you know what? None of that means anything. The question is, do you and I hear the words of Jesus when he says, listen, you are going to be blessed if you learn to forgive people. You're going to be blessed if you are allowing humility to come into your life. You are going to be happy. You are going to be fulfilled when you are a peacemaker. Question is, do we believe him? Do we believe him enough to walk down that path? Do we believe him enough to turn away from worldly wisdom, worldly pursuits, worldly philosophy, and say, Jesus, I believe you. I trust you. That's what I really found myself wrestling with and thinking about as I read through this chapter about blessedness. Hope you'll do the same thing.